Good, everyone. I hope you guys have an amazing day. So, what I'm going to do today, right? I want to talk about a very interesting topic as a part of this user experience certification. That is empathize with your customer. Now, you might have heard this term over the course of your career, or you might have heard this term even if you were traveling or attending a conference. This term, the customer, right? Empathize with the customer is very important. The reason why I'm saying is, right, at the end of the day, right, we're building solution for a customer, right? And if you're building solution for a customer, you need to keep the customer pain points into consideration. If you're not going to build something, which is useful for the customer, right, it's going to waste your time, to waste your money, and even the customer time to even review your product, right? So there is an old saying, right, and it still holds true even in 2023. That's the customer is the king, which is true. Because at the end of the day, the people who are going to use the technology you build, their opinion matters, right? It's very important that you take them on board and work with them and to understand and even empathize with them, right? Empathy is very important in a business workspace. In a professional career, uh, empathy plays a big role. The reason why, because you need to say, so from a Salesforce perspective, right? If I wanted to talk from a requirement gathering perspective, you obviously propose or suggest your customer to use Salesforce, keeping, say, uh, their pain point into consideration. Let's take an example of the net zero, right, which is a very cool example. I'm a climate change guy. I can talk about climate change for till the end of my lifetime. I would say I'm that much passionate. So let's say a customer has a requirement to build a net zero, right? Because the company wants to achieve the net zero, keeping, say, country commitment into consideration. For instance, in New Zealand, we have a commitment to, as a country, to reach net zero by 2050 because we have signed the Paris agreement, right? If you're from the United States, or if you're from UK, if you're from Australia, if you're from different parts of the Europe, maybe Scandinavia, Iceland, wherever it is, right? You know what Paris climate change agreement is all about. Um, so keeping that into consideration, let's say a business have a requirement to go net zero. Now, business don't know how to achieve the net zero, right? So that's your requirement. And the business do understand that there are a lot of pain points to achieve that target, right? Now, you as an implementation customer, or you as a vendor, it's your responsibility to empathize, and understand the pain point so that you can work towards building a solution. Right now, my customer says to you, "Hey, this is my problem. Like we are planning to go net zero by 2030, and we got a lot of emission problem here, like scope one, scope two, scope three. I don't want to get into details. Let's just, for the sake of assumption, let's say we have a carbon dioxide emission problem, right? We are a textile industry, just or right, just for this, or we are a plant which manufacture raw material which generate lots of carbon dioxide. Simple, right? Now, a company don't know what to do, right? They have no idea what to do because obviously they can't stop generating what they're doing, otherwise they're gonna go out of the business, right? Now, if you're planning to implement net zero, you need to understand a few things, right? First of all, the pain point and the customer they're serving. That means the customer's customers, right? And because the reason why and the way they can work to measure that emission factor, right? Obviously, the customer don't want you to worry about, the way to change. Uh, they don't want you to worry about their process of to reduce the greenhouse, to reduce the carbon dioxide. All they want your assistance with how to measure it, how to in the record the change compared to previous year. They wanted to know, hey, last year the greenhouse emission for from this plant is XYZ, and this year this. They wanted to measure that. They wanted to see in the form of a chart. They wanted to make sure that they're achieving the target. And what happened if they fail to achieve the target? Is there something they can offset it, like carbon credit and all kind of stuff, right? So you, as a vendor, it becomes very important to empathize your customer, understand the need, and suggest solutions. So when we often get involved in this kind of scenario, right? We often talk about discovery workshop. That's something that's very important. If you're a consultant or if you're a solution architect, you would know the importance of a discovery workshop. It doesn't matter it's a functional workshop or it's a technical workshop. The discovery workshop is an opportunity for you to understand a customer pain point, work with them, shadow with them, and even ask questions, right? That's a common scenario around, right? So, however, if you look at the trailhead, right, they talked about embodying, shadowing, and interviewing, right? The first part, right? Um, you as a business, right? You need to understand their pain point. You need to understand the real problem, what they're facing. You need to understand, uh, the issues they've been facing of the duration of the. I mean, you need to have a good understanding about uh, the past issues and current issue, right? So it might be the case that they never had an issue for like since say 2020. Now all of a sudden since 2020 this is a issue they're seeing, like for instance the net zero. But that's because the government hasn't signed a Paris Agreement before that, right? And now they've signed it. They expect the companies to follow that net zero goal. So the pain point has been different before a certain period of time. Now, you as a business need to understand what is the problem they're having and why they're experiencing this problem and what's the challenge they face to implement this net zero solution, and have they faced any challenges to when or what have they done so far, right, to mitigate this net zero issue what they're facing, right? So you need to understand, you need to ask this right question in a discovery workshop, right? And also it's important that you get to shadow your customer to see, to say for instance in case of plan, just to have a tour of the plant to see what's going on and what is contributing to the more carbon dioxide, and you understand the process how they manufacture textile or whatever, right? Because if you have a better understanding of the process, you can able to recommend a better solution, right? In case the net zero, right? And you can work out the things which is contributing to carbon dioxide, things which they need to worry about, things they need to capture, and so that they can measure the carbon credit, carbon footprint. So that's why the shadowing means here, right? It could mean different, right? So shadowing, so for instance, if you have a problem, if you're running a hotel, right? If you're running a hotel, then obviously if you're experiencing a slowdown in terms of a customer, you can sit with them to see how they interact with the customer or how they make a booking and kind of stuff, right? So that's kind of shadowing is about, right? But in case of like a plant or manufacturing plant, the shadowing will be involved around going with your customer to see the process, to understand what is causing what, right? And at the end of the day, it's always good to take notes, right? But the few things you need to understand, right, before you start taking notes or taking pictures, take the permission from a customer, because it's very important. Some things they don't want to expose to the world, so you need to respect that, right? So you have to take prior permission before you even take a guided tour or whatever, right? Or started taking pictures or recording the conversation. So you need to be very careful about that, right? That's, as a vendor, it's your responsibility to ask those questions in advance, right? It's very important. It might look trivial, but it can be very important for a customer, because they will not appreciate you started taking pictures of the plan without their consent, right? It's gonna raise a false alarm, and they will not be even interested to do business with you, right? And and also, right, it's important to interview your customer, right? Just sit with them and say, hey, explain to me your pain points. And obviously customer might have said, hey, I have this problem, and this is my document, right? But it's different when you actually interview somebody, right, from a customer space, to say, hey, what's your experience been? Why actually so much concern? What have you done? Do you have any current existing documentation in place or current process in place for the net zero? If yes, can you share with me, right? What's the problem with that process? Why do you want it to change to Salesforce? A lot of questions you can ask, right? You just need to prepare that, and then you just attend an interview with interview, or maybe the casual conversation. Maybe you can go out for a coffee, or whichever way works for you, right? It's not always the one size fit for all. Some customers prefer super a professional environment where they wanted to go to the boardroom and discuss things, whereas some customers prefer a casual, right? They say, hey, let's go for a coffee and explain to you the problem we are facing, right? So it differs from customer to customer, right? So that's one of the things you need to be wary about when you're dealing with the customer. Empathy is very important. So that's the topic. Empathize with your customer plays a very important role. It takes you, um, in a better. It takes your company to a different space altogether when you're interacting with a customer at a different level, because empathy will ensure that you will have a better working relationship with your customer, which is the key foundation for any business, right? Because the customer needs to have a trust factor, right? Customer needs to trust that, yeah, my vendor understand my pain point, right? They wanted to uh, make sure that they solve our problem rather than giving a message. The vendors don't give a damn about what we wanted to say. I'm not even sure if they're going to really help us, right? So you can see the difference in the thinking, right? So that's what really important, right? Just to make sure that you build that trust with your customer, so that they can trust you with the solution they want you to build. Right? It's pretty simple, but you'll be surprised. Many people, many businesses get it wrong, right? Because of bureaucracy, because of all garbage, right? Whatever it is, right? So that being said, I hope you guys have an amazing Thursday. Adios.